Good evening. I am Doug Kordemosh. I am a surgeon in Vancouver. I am a member of the CAPA planning team, and I want to share some information with you about the health-related harms of fracking. I acknowledge the land, the water, and the air in the territory of the Musqueam Nation, where I live. This is the gas plant near Rolla, BC. It operates 24/7. There's continuous high decibel noise, roaring sounds, and explosions. There's continuous bright light pollution. Some fracking operations are within 500 meters of people's homes and farms. There are many industrial smells, such as diesel, but there are other important gases. CO2, a greenhouse gas. Methane leaks as part of the process. It's also a very potent greenhouse gas. Benzene and other volatile organic compounds, all highly toxic, carcinogenic, and with no known safe limit for exposure. Hydrogen sulfide in sour gas, detectable at 4 parts per million, lethal in 30 minutes at 600 parts per million, heavier than air, and as dangerous as cyanide. Formaldehyde and ozone, both severe respiratory irritants causing lung damage. And soot, PM 2.5 particles, inhaled, absorbed in the lung, transported around the body, and left in organs causing injury, inflammation, and cancer. Fracking uses a lot of water, 5.2 billion liters in BC in 2021. Unlicensed dams are built to contain water for use in the fracking process. This sequesters water away from agriculture. BC's Peace Country is prime agricultural land because the soil quality, the length of the growing season, and the long days. Remember, British Columbians, turn off the tap while brushing your teeth. This will save 8,300 liters per person each year. If we all do this, we can support years of fracking. Wells can be drilled to within 200 meters of domestic water supply. Groundwater can be contaminated. Water levels are so low that farmers are going to have to drill wells for groundwater irrigation and are concerned about contamination of their crops. Used water cannot be returned to the land. It's stored in giant tailing ponds called sea rings. This water contains heavy metals, toxic chemicals, and it's radioactive. The North is now a patchwork of frack pads, roads, water dams, and pipelines. The land has been injured and no longer supports the adequate provision of food, clothing, and shelter. Pipes run under farmers' fields or along the edge of their property with no real setback. These pipes are designed for low-volume, low-pressure systems but are being used as methane reservoirs at 2,700 psi. A significant leak would result in the risk of explosion, fire, or asphyxiation. There is no specific monitoring, no alarm system, no safety plan, and no safety equipment for the farmers, who feel they've been deemed expendable by the industry and by the province. There's been social change and social trauma. Man camps have contributed to the problems of crime and missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Chemical damage to DNA causes cancer. Hormone disruption leads to endocrine dysfunction. Chronic injury and inflammation leads to degenerative disease in the lung and the brain. Toxic pollutants have caused death from exposure. Cardiovascular disease is increased. The loss of biodiversity has resulted in loss of immunity. This has been recently recognized with the breakdown of ecosystems resulting in increased zoonotic disease. This is one of the theories about the emergence of COVID. The adverse effects on pregnancy from living near fracking are well documented. There's an increase in premature births. Babies are born below their expected birth weight. There are multiple congenital anomalies, both isolated and multiple. This is harming future generations. Mental health suffers. Noise and light pollution cause sleep disturbance. Earthquakes and rattling windows cause fear and stress. People develop post-traumatic stress disorder. Drug and alcohol abuse and addiction rates rise. The psychological response to the climate crisis are also important. Solastalgia is common, as is climate anxiety and eco-grief. People who live in the farmhouses their grandparents or great-grandparents built are seeing the loss of their way of life and their livelihoods. Fossil fuel companies have bought out some communities and applied non-disclosure agreements so other communities won't know what is happening. This has disrupted the relationship amongst the local people. It's worn them down and taken away their resolve to fight back. They need our help. This is a recent poster of the social determinants of health. Things in your life, like your race, education, level of employment, social strata, make up 50%. The environment, at the bottom, makes up only 10%. I think this is far from true, as we know that a lot of disease is due to the polycrisis we are facing. I have a different take on what makes British Columbians sick. These are the fracking determinants of health. I have methane, CO2, hydrogen sulfide, benzene, and radon down the left side. There are a rainbow of British Columbians on the right, with a row of our non-human relations above and below. In between is a graphic list of the systems and some of the specific health problems. Not exhaustive, but a good place to start. This is reproduced as one of the resource sheets available from the CAPA. On the back of the sheet is the abstract of a recent article in the Canadian Journal of Public Health looking at health and fracking, written by a group of mostly local BC authors, including Ulrike Meyer, a physician from Dawson Creek. The DOI code is there for anyone who wants to follow up the details and extensive references for themselves. Beginning in 2012, sensible jurisdictions began banning fracking, or at least halting fracking. What about British Columbia? As you can see, it's worthwhile and necessary to fight for a healthy, frack-free BC. Now I'm going to hand you back to Brenda to introduce Guy.